In the 1920s, America was experiencing a post-war age of prosperity and wealth. People partook in all the fun that time had to offer. However, it's not my job to explain that. I'll skip ahead. This age of merriment ended on one fateful day. The stock market was a big deal in the 20s. Stock market values reached an apex in 1925 and began to fall after that. That was the first event that would lead up to Black Tuesday and later the Great Depression. Americans invested more in the stock market, hopeful that it would rise again. But this was a mistake. They went into debt. And things only worsened in 1929. On October 24th, the stock market fell again after a period of recovering prices. On October 28th, investors started selling large amounts of stock. On October 29th, Black Tuesday, 16 million shares were traded. That is a lot. Everyone was trying to get rid of their stocks, but no one was buying. Black Tuesday is considered one of the worst days in the history of the stock market. The stock market was closed over the weekend and opened again on Monday. Prices continued to drop, and they dropped for the next several years, plunging America into a Great Depression. During this time, banks were failing left and right. People tried to pull their money out of them, but the banks had invested all of the money into the stock market. During the Great Depression, approximately 9,000 banks failed, and hundreds of billions of dollars were lost. The president this time was Herbert Hoover. In November 1929, he said, "Any lack of confidence in the economic future or the basic strength of business in the United States is foolish." Basically, he told them to chill out. The stock market had gone into depressions countless times before, fairly regularly even. However, this was no depression to brush off. There's a reason why this depression is considered great. However, in 1932, a new president and a new hope for America was elected. Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Democratic president guaranteed a new deal for American people. As soon as Roosevelt was in office, he announced all the banks across the nation would go on a 4-day holiday from March 6th to March 9th. Soon after, this was extended until the 13th. This New Deal mentioned earlier, what did it consist of? The New Deal was a number of programs launched by Roosevelt to improve Americans' condition, some of which were the Civilian Conservation Corps, over 2 million young men who worked to maintain parks, beaches, and forests. The Farm Security Administration, which loaned over $1 billion to struggling farmers. And later on, the Fair Labor Union Standards Act of 1938, which established a minimum wage and banned child labor. Roosevelt's New Deal was a huge success, and he was wildly popular. Several of his programs introduced with the New Deal have survived the test of time and are still around today. However, despite the efforts given to try to end this suffering, the Great Depression continued on. Roosevelt did not give up hope, and in 1935, a second New Deal was introduced. One of the main programs in the second New Deal was the Works Progress Administration, which helped build or rebuild hospitals, roads, airports, and schools, and gave unemployed Americans an opportunity to work. 1937 brought with it an economic recession, which lasted about a year. Unemployment rates rose about 5%, the first rise in unemployment since Roosevelt took office. To combat this recession, Congress gave the president $3.75 billion to spend, which in turn Roosevelt distributed to his reform programs. Meanwhile, in Europe and Asia, war had broken out. The United States tried to avoid being caught up in the fight, but on December 7, 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, bringing America into the war. However, there was an upside. Due to the changes in America's economy caused by preparing for the war, the Great Depression had finally ended.